Hello again. It's Miss Jones from Sew with Miss Jones. We are in the home stretch. We only have a couple more things to do. First thing that we're going to do is turn our pillow right side out. So in order to do that, you need to reach inside. And if your hole's probably not big enough for your whole hand, but what you can start doing is just like scooching over and getting those corners out. I'm going to scooch over here, get that corner flipped out. Oh, what happened? Let's try this again. And you just have to keep wiggling and wiggling. Be careful not to tear that hole. So you do have to kind of be gentle. And you see where the felt is, it's thicker, so it's a little bit harder to get through there, but just very carefully and gently turn this all the way out. Well, if you notice, my pizza's kind of funny looking, and that's because I don't have the holes poked out yet. So if you can get your finger in there, and you might be able to do that in some of the places, and really try to kind of nudge that. Don't push too hard because you don't want it to tear there. And I'm going to get over here a little bit too. Now, one of the other things you can do is if you have a clean chopstick at home, you can kind of stick that in that corner and nudge it a little bit. The same way with this point down here at the bottom. I'm going to turn it out as much as I can, and then I'm going to use my chopstick. Well, not everybody has a chopstick, so you could use an ink pen if you have one that you have to have it closed. You can't do it with the ink part of it. You're going to have a mess. So I can't get my hand all the way down in there, but I can get that chopstick in there and just kind of nudge it a little bit. Okay, and I do want to be careful because I don't want to tear a hole in this corner right here. Now, if that happens, you can put it back together with a few hand stitches, just like we're going to use to close up the hole. But try not to, try to be careful when you do that so you don't have that happen. Now, one of the other things you can do is if you take your chopstick or the point of your pen and you just kind of run along the edge. You don't want a valley here, wherever possible. You don't really have to press this at this point because the stuffing is going to kind of get rid of whatever rolling thing you got going there. So there's my pizza slice. It looks pretty much like a pizza slice. And now it's time to do the stuffing. So you're going to have a bag of stuffing. Your bag of stuffing is probably way too much. You probably will use a little more than half of it. I have a different kind, but that's okay. One of the things that you want to do is don't jam it in with great big chunks. And if you notice also, I'm kind of fluffing it up. This stuff goes everywhere. So please make sure you pick up after yourself. Otherwise, your grown-ups are going to be mad at you. Okay, so I'm going to put it in there. Kind of shake it down to the bottom. This is also, if you don't have a chopstick, you could use a ruler. You just need something that's going to get that down in the point. And it's always really important wherever you have like a corner or a point or something like that, that you make sure that that part is filled up before you start sticking your stuffing somewhere else. Otherwise, that part will be flat and you won't like that. So I'm going to jam a little bit more. I'm going to put some more in here and make sure that I have plenty down in this corner, this little point. And you see how I'm just pushing? I want this to be nice and fat down here. So I'm just pushing it in. And as long as I get that part filled up, then it's going to be easier to get the rest of it in here. So again, don't try to jam a big blob in like this because then it's going to be lumpy. You want to kind of pull it apart a little bit, and don't make it so big that it's going to tear your hole when you stick it in there. Okay, I'm going to finish filling this up, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you what to do to close up the hole. So I did use up the whole bag. I think my bag, though, is probably a little bit smaller than yours. The one that you get should have like 12 ounces in it, and I don't think this was quite that much. I did make sure that I put plenty in the corners over here so my pizza crust doesn't flop down, and then I pushed it all in. One of the things, I know you probably don't have a ruler like this at home, but one of the things that you can do is use your ruler to push it in. So the next thing that I need to do is close up the hole. And remember how we folded those edges in and creased them? You should be able to find those creases. And we're going to put some pins along this edge. You need probably maybe about 3 or 4, and try to make sure that those edges are tucked down that 5/8 of an inch so you have a nice smooth edge. They should be stacked right on top of each other. And I think I can do it with one more. So I need to get some thread and a needle to sew this up. I will be right back. We're going to use a single thread for this. So you're going to use the color that you've sewed your pillow with. You don't want to use another color because you really don't want this to show. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to pull it up to the end up to my shoulder, and the spool is in my hand. And then I am going to cut the thread. And then I am going to thread my needle. My Sasha is sitting right next to me. She keeps shaking her head. She likes to let me know she's around. Okay, I cut the fuzzy part off. See if I can get this through here. And I'm going to put a knot at one end. And you make this knot just the same way that you did when you were doing the other hand sewing. And we do want this knot to, let me try that again. Okay, we do not want this knot to show on the outside. So in order to hide it, I'm actually going to go sew this way, but I want to be able to hide my knot, so I'm going to hold my pillow the opposite direction, and I'm kind of going to go backwards in between the 2 layers. Okay. Show you what I'm doing. So I'm in between the 2 layers. I'm putting my needle like that, and then I'm going to tuck that little knot down in. Oh, come on. It's not cooperating. Oh, because the pin's there. Now it's down inside. See, even when you've done this for a long time, sometimes you've got to mess around with it a little bit. Okay, we're going to do a slip stitch, and there is a video I will link down below that shows you how to do a slip stitch. What you don't want to do is a whip stitch. A whip stitch is just around and around and around like this. And if you do that, it generally doesn't look that good because unfortunately the thread really shows when you do that. So let me get up here. A slip stitch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the back, and I'm going at an angle, and I barely catch the front. Okay, then I'm going to go straight back from where the needle came out, and I'm going to go at an angle, and I'm catching both edges real close to the edge and pull it flat. If you notice, I'm not going around and around, I'm going just in that folded edge. And these need to be pretty close together. If you make them too big, then your stuffing's going to leak out. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so just across there. And you don't need to watch me do this whole thing, but just remember, you're going to get just barely the edge of one of the back side and then to the front. And then when you start again, you go directly across from where your thread came out on the front, and you do that little stitch again. So I'm going to finish this part up, and I'm going to show you what to do when I get to the other side. I will be back in a minute. So I have stitched up the entire hole, and I want to show you what to do with your thread because you don't want to have a knot on the outside. So I'm going to take one more stitch, and when I take this last stitch, I'm going to go through the loop. Actually, I'm going to put my finger in there so I can go through. I want to go through twice. Once and then twice. And probably my finger is in the way. But I went through that loop twice, and then I'm going to pull it down flat. And then I don't want this little thread hanging out here, so I'm going to take my needle. I'm going to go down between the two things and then just pop my needle out over there. Take the scissors. If you notice, I'm pulling it tight, and that's so I don't have a loop hanging out when I get done, and very carefully so I don't cut my pillow here at the last minute. I'm going to cut that thread. Now, one of the things, if you notice, my pillow is kind of lumpy right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pat it down a little bit, squish the stuff around. Now, you really should put plenty of stuffing in here because over time, if you have it, you know, and you use it, it can get a little flatter, just like any kind of pillow will. So, you know, just kind of pat it around so the stuffing is pretty even, and you're all done. Wasn't that fun? See you next time. Bye-bye.